It is 4:30 a.m. on the 28th of September, a Saturday. Our very first stop is West Coast McDonald's, where we are going to rendezvous with the first batch of cars that will be following us. You can see we have all sorts of cars. You do not need a fancy SUV to make it to Tibet. At 5:30 a.m. in the morning, Tuas checkpoint is already crowded, and you can see why. Here is our second rendezvous point. Yes, sir. What?
We go to Tangkak first.
Tangkak first,
You want to go?
And we have a whole bunch of cars getting ready to go to Sepang for their track day. It's such a nice feeling to hit the open road once more. Time for a quick refuel before we head over to Chu Chi for wonton mee and chicken rice.
I order this meat and meat. Okay. Then I order 2 bowl wonton. Okay. No noodle.
Now that we have a full tummy, we're gonna head towards Ipoh. And for lunch, we are headed to Sungai Kerling for their seafood. Today is the 29th of September, Sunday, the second day of our journey towards Mount Everest in Tibet from Singapore. And this is the morning where we will check our vehicles and ensure all communication is in order before we head out for a scenic route towards our first petrol refuel. This will be our final refuel of cheap petrol from Malaysia. We headed to a place at the border that will settle all our paperwork for us. We are going to expect a pretty heavy traffic at the checkpoint as it's a Sunday. And here we see people at the customs clearance for their vehicles. Welcome to Thailand. These are some of the other cars that are joining us on this trip. Our lunch stop at the Mai Mok restaurant, one of the more popular restaurants here with pretty good food. And of course, a very unique restaurant grounds here. Here we get a glimpse of the hustle and bustle of the Thai morning market. We took a route that involves some overhead railway crossing. Pretty unique. I actually like this sort of route. Really tight, but the Thai drivers are really patient in giving ways to us. And you can see that my car antenna actually hits the overhead bridge. We have finally reached our hotel for this evening, the Centera Hajai Hotel. And here we have really tight security checks. No trip to Hajai will be complete without that suckling pig. And of course, that bustling street market at night. We're headed to a restaurant to sample the suckling pig and a lot of their local delicacies.
Tonight? Yeah, don't eat too much. Like maybe eat too much already, then
Today marks day 3 of our expedition drive from Singapore to Tibet and Mount Everest. It's gonna be a grueling 950 kilometers drive spanning 14 hours today, and in this video you will find out why. Our very first stop of the day is to get a petrol refuel for the very long trip ahead. Traffic was heavy on the rural works, and it doesn't help that there was a lot of road works happening. We stopped for lunch at this quaint little restaurant in Champon that is located with the petrol station. This eating place is a gem because this is quite a rural area. We enjoy our food thoroughly after a long morning drive. And of course, to top it off, we had a really good barista brewed coffee. It was blazing hot today and we got great respite from a short shower. After a grueling 8 hours drive from Hajai, we finally reached Hua Hin, and Marriott here is gonna be our accommodation for tonight. This is one of my favorite places to stay in. As you can see, there are lots of recreational activities for families and your kids. The Marriott at Hua Hin is renowned for serving one of the best breakfasts in the region, serving great food amidst verdant environment. As we had a little time before we need to head out for dinner, we helped ourselves to a couple of drinks at the lounge. After a long drive, we were absolutely famished and we headed out to Chiang Rai for seafood by the sea. While everyone else headed back to their lovely accommodation at the Marriott, I had to rush over to Bangkok because I had an appointment with a car workshop tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and knowing Bangkok's traffic, the best way is to set off at night. The relentless thunderstorm resulted in some heavy flooding and we only managed to reach Bangkok after midnight. After 3 exhausting days of long drives, we have reached Bangkok and the first order of the day is to get our dirty laundry sorted. We hopped onto a Grab and found this little quaint laundry shop run by the locals. After that, we hopped on yet into another Grab to head for lunch at Hoki Puchana. They are famous for their duck's blood, which I absolutely love, the Webb's goose, as well as the fish maw soup. We managed to book ourselves an EV to head over to the newest spanking mall, Amsphere, for some retail therapy. But a bear seems to be all the rage seeing the queues out there. Of course, we caught some fancy cars. For dinner, we head to Liu Lian Sing, which is an eatery with more than 100 years history. We ordered our familiar favorites and were not disappointed. The next day, we head over to one of our favorite shops, Iron Man 4x4, where we caught up with some very good friends. A couple of my friends were deeply poisoned by the huge array of equipment and gear as well as modifications that can be done here. The boss of Iron Man brought us out to lunch at this restaurant which looks like a home. We totally enjoyed this place and would not have found it had it not been for the recommendation of the boss. Our laundry was ready to be picked up, and we decided to take the BTS to explore Siam Paragon. Bangkok is totally packed even on a Wednesday night. We are entering day 6 of our epic drive from Singapore to Tibet and Mount Everest. We leave Bangkok for Pitsanulok, and that's gonna be a 6-hour drive spanning 395 kilometers. Along the way, we stopped at Samchuk Market for some sightseeing as well as for lunch. This is a traditional market that has been around for more than a century. This market has a very authentic old school feel. One of the more famous restaurants in this market sells this massive meatball that is about the size of a child's head. We have finally reached Pitsanulok and we are staying at Shinabura Historic Boutique Hotel. I love the decoration as well as the decor and architecture of this boutique hotel. For couples on a romantic getaway, this hotel is a must visit. Day 7 of our journey takes us from Pitsanulok to Chiang Rai, and that's gonna be a 7 hours drive across 435 kilometers. This stretch of road has quite a bit of roadworks along the way and it slowed us down quite a bit. But the roads later opened up to undulating hills. We visited Singha Park Chiang Rai, a scenic spot where we will also be getting our lunch. Lunch is at the highly acclaimed Bu Birom. Although it's a little bit expensive, but the view as well as the great food makes up for it. En route to our hotel for this evening, we passed by Wat Rong Kun, a white temple that has some really intricate architecture, carvings and interior. Lim Meridian Chiang Rai Resort is where we will rest this evening. Today is day 8 of our road trip from Singapore to Mount Everest and Tibet, and we are heading from Chiang Rai towards Chiang Kong. The journey so far is 2,743 kilometers. Along the way, we stopped by Choi Fong Tea Plantation, a great choice if you want to relax with a cup of tea as well as some cakes amidst lush green scenery. Prices here are pretty expensive, but hey, you're paying for the view. We are near the Golden Triangle, and beyond these mountains is Myanmar. This restaurant is popular because you are eating in Thailand while you can see Myanmar and Laos across the horizon.
Say hi.
In fact, I was able to fly my drone from Thailand all the way into Laos. The Golden Triangle Buddha is just a couple of 100 meters away from the restaurant. It is extremely popular with tourists because you can see all 3 countries from this spot. There was a House of Opium museum just beside the Golden Triangle Buddha, and you can learn about how opium was produced as well as traded during the early days. Along the way, we saw street-side vendors getting ready for their night market. As I've been driving the entire day, I am happy that my co-navigator as well as driver, Mr. Po, took the wheel. After a long drive, we eventually reached our resting place for this evening, which is the Chiang Kong Teak Garden Riverfront Hotel. A unique selling point of this hotel is from most of the rooms, you can actually just see Laos across the river. I managed to fly my drone from the hotel into Laos itself. Day 9 of our road trip from Singapore to Mount Everest is starting from Chiang Kong and ending in Botan in Laos. Today is going to be a very treacherous day, as you will find out why later on in the video.
16 will be the
Because of our great relationship with the Thailand Tourism Board, they made available to us a couple of police escort to ensure we have a safe and smooth ride and drive to the border. The Chiang Kong vehicle border checkpoint isn't exactly the most popular, and we were pretty much the only cars there. We cleared with no fanfare and we reached the Laos border control and immigration. We had to get our permits done up. Although it's pretty early for lunch, we decided to eat here
Middle of the road, all flat.
because the rest of Laos has been affected by flooding and water supply isn't exactly the cleanest. I really like how idyllic as well as serene Laos is. You can see that there are collapsed roads from the floods, and we stopped at a petrol kiosk, but the petrol quality is questionable. I don't think it even meets 91 octane. Livestock that is roaming the streets become easy target for roadkill. We encountered landslides pretty much every couple of 100 meters, which is testament to how severe the heavy rainstorm as well as the flooding was. The The road condition in Laos is not exactly the best, and that is not surprising considering that Laos is one of the poorest country in Southeast Asia. A lot of the roads are riddled with potholes filled with muddy water. There's a landslide ahead and we are right now at a complete standstill. You can tell that from these roads that have collapsed, it is absolutely dangerous to travel in Laos at night without any street lighting. You can easily fall into the ravine and frankly, you will not find any help perhaps till the next day. I do not see many children going to school and you can see that parents are pretty young. Many of our cars were slightly damaged traversing these really horrid conditions. We had under trays being ripped off, we had damaged wheels as well. By now, most of our cars were caked in a thick layer of mud as well as red dust. Imagine if you were driving a normal sedan over these roads. It is absolutely not possible if you haven't got at least a crossover. For the smaller cars in our team, these potholes are as deep as an entire wheel. For certain stretches, we had to wait up to half an hour for the trucks to clear before we can go because it is now a one-lane road. And smaller cars are really just bullied on the road as the trailers and big trucks muscle their way through. Here we are reaching to Bhutan. With our cars absolutely filthy. Bhutan is a strange place. It is located in Laos, however. There is Chinese food, you get menu and signboards in Chinese, everything is paid in renminbi, and really it is just catered for the Chinese. And of course, the vices that are not allowed in China, for example, casinos, social escorts, etc. are openly traded here. Today marks day 10 of our journey from Laos into China. I'm here in Bhutan, Laos, and here with me are bikers from Malaysia who has made a long trip amongst all the mud and it's definitely not easy.
We travel about 8,000 kilometers all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good luck. It's a trip of a lifetime. Enjoy yourself. The Bhutan International Checkpoint in Laos is just a few hundred meters away from our hotel. We were allowed to drive over to Mohan, China, where our cars were sterilized and sanitized. Our cars also had to go through an X-ray scanner to make sure that we were not bringing in contrabands. We were totally famished and Chinese food fits us just right. We had skipped filling up our tanks in Laos as the quality is questionable and price isn't exactly cheap. We then headed to a small traffic police department. After a few hours of processing, we got our Chinese driving license as well as my temporary Chinese registration plates.
法规都不一样，法律也不一样。我们车子比较多。
Our temporary registration plates allowed us to clear the toll stations with ease. Sichuan Pana is one of Asia's largest untouched virginal tropical rainforest. You can literally drive for hours on end and all you see are lush, untouched greenery on both sides. It never fails to amaze me that China built such amazing high quality and great infrastructure within such a short time. It is pretty late in Phú, where we will stay the night. We headed to Chama to stroll the night markets and to really absorb the vibes of the locals. We had an amazing dinner at one of the restaurants there, as well as filled our belly with street food. This hotel is not very busy and we were the only ones there, and I can tell you this hotel matches or exceeds international standards. Today is day 11 of my expedition from Singapore to Mount Everest, and I'm trying to get from Phú to Kunming. It is a long 413 kilometers to Kunming city center. However, the beautifully built roads as well as the fantastic scenery more than makes up for the long distance. I stopped at this gas station the last year I drove to China, and I love this gas station because there is a lot of fruit stalls selling one of the best produce in the region. Because the highways were so well connected, we reached Kunming before lunch. Whenever I come to Kunming, I would try to make it a point to have my lunch at Sangzuo Yunnan 传统过桥米线. This restaurant is packed with local customers and there is always a constant long queue outside the restaurant. Here are the ingredients. We have quail's eggs, prawns, some Sichuan vegetables. I have no idea what this is. Chicken, various kinds of ham, pork, radish.
咸汤咸米线加汤米线，然后今晚烫。
The raw ingredients are seared in a bowl of very hot soup. You should not touch that bowl. And for me, I haven't been to Kunming if I didn't drop by DJI. They always have the latest gadgets and gizmos. It's now time to do some of my drone flying in the city center, and I'm taking off from this very interesting intersection with the iconic bridge amidst Kunming city center. Government buildings are often adorned with slogans. My 3.5-liter V6 twin-turbo engine in my Toyota Land Cruiser worked hard to bring me from Singapore to Malaysia, Thailand, and through the really horrible flooded and broken roads of Laos, so it deserves a fresh oil change. You can see the premises are extremely clean and they have a very good protocol to ensure that all the work is done in accordance to Toyota HQ standards. At the end of the maintenance service, they gave the car a good wash. It's 14 degrees right now in Kunming, and it's the first time a Singapore car gets to use the heated steering wheel as well as the heated seat function. On day 12 and 13 of my expedition drive from Singapore to Tibet and Everest, I will be going from Kunming to Lijiang via Dali. Of course, this is a long journey and we stopped for a toilet break. The weather wasn't so good, but by the time we reached Dali, it was all blue skies, and that allowed me to take some really nice drone shots just outside the restaurant where we will be having our lunch. Tianlongge serves food by the Baizu tribe, and they have also hosted the late Queen of England. After a scrumptious lunch, it was time to walk it off in Dali Gucheng, which is the old city of Dali. This place is pretty touristy and they do have a couple of unique produce specific to Dali. I also got to try deep-fried insects such as bugs, larvae, scorpions, as well as crickets. I'm not sure what this animal is, but it looks like an alpaca. And here we have the famous Xian Hua Ping. It rained a little as we were heading to Lijiang and we were greeted by a beautiful rainbow. But the weather cleared up and you have the scenic view with the deep blue skies.
Kawan, 15 got stopped by security to check his engine.
You can tell the toll station workers are pretty serious about their work. Traffic around Lijiang Gucheng is slow and chaotic, but hey, that's part of the experience, isn't it? This time we are staying at the Intercontinental Lijiang Ancient Town Resort. I like the architecture of this place because all the buildings and the rooms of this town resort is built to blend in to the ancient town. We had dinner at Yunxie, which served Lijiang's familiar favorites. I then took a walk around Lijiang Gucheng and hopefully find a spot to fly my drone. Please enjoy the beautiful, scenic, lit-up skies of the ancient town of Lijiang at night. It's time to head back to my hotel room and here's what it looks like. I will be staying here for 2 nights to rest, recoup, as well as settle my laundry and work on some videos. This is an extremely comfortable place to spend my next 2 days and I'm not complaining. As our elevation is now 2,400 meters above sea level with distributed oxygen canisters to our members. Most of our participants took the day tour to look around Lijiang, but I skipped this because I just drove through Lijiang a couple of months ago on my London-Singapore trip, where I saw the various attractions such as the Zhang Yimou show, as well as the Yulong Xueshan. Instead, I drove my car out for a good wash as my clothes were getting dirty every time I got in and out of my car.
你刚刚看一下，
这个多少钱一个
4元，
有没有支付？
没有，你明天来付吧。
I also took a walk around the less touristy part of Lijiang. As well as got myself some authentic local food.
清汤鱼片、干锅肥肠、爆炒腰花、青椒炒火腿。
Today marks day 14 of our Singapore to Tibet and Mount Everest drive, and we are leaving Lijiang really early this morning because we have a long 348 kilometers of road to travel. Due to the chaotic traffic within minutes of leaving our hotel, One of our convoy members' cars got into a little fender bender with a local Chinese car. The traffic police reacted really quickly, coming down within minutes, and told us that in China, we have to give way to cars that are exiting a roundabout. We accepted liability and proceeded to a nearby workshop to assess the amount of damage. We decided to privately settle, and everything was sorted out within an hour. Before we hit the road, we topped up our gas tanks. And here we are, the fabled mythical Shangri-La. One of the scenic spots we are headed to is the Tiger Leaping Gorge. Tiger Leaping Gorge, also known as Hu Tiaoxia, is a scenic canyon on the Chiang River, which contributes to the upper Yangtze River. Legend says that the name comes from a hunted tiger trying to escape by jumping across the river at the narrowest point, which is about 25 meters, using the rock in the middle. This Tiger Leaping Gorge is one of the deepest and most spectacular river canyons in the world. It is now time to head for our lunch as we were totally famished. We entered Shangri-La Old Town to look for some food. Our restaurant is located at Shambhala Old Street. At this restaurant, we tasted some authentic Tibetan food.
Clockwise. Okay.
After a satisfying lunch, it was time to work off the calories by walking around the Shangri-La ancient town and exploring what the town has to offer. We can see many Chinese dressing up in Tibetan clothing and taking photographs. We still have quite a long way to our next destination, which is Deting. And along the way, we stopped at a viewpoint to have a look at a scenic view. There are never-ending winding roads bringing us across the mountainous regions of Tibet. Sharing the roads with cows and yaks is a common sight in the Tibetan Autonomous Region. It was almost midnight and freezing cold when we reached Deting, and this hot pot warmed up our tummies. I woke up really early before 6 AM, brought my expensive camera gear up to the rooftop of my hotel hoping to catch a glimpse of the Mei Li Xue San. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't good and I was denied that opportunity. We headed out into the mountains and trekked closer and closer to Tibet. The mountainous roads are not very well traveled and there are very few cars around. The road conditions are also not exactly the best. Many portions of the road were poorly maintained, broken up, and it slowed us down tremendously. However, the view more than makes up for it. It's like a landscape from Mars. Toyota Land Cruisers are really popular here, and you literally see these every other minute. One of the first attractions we visited is a 1,300 years old Tibetan salt mine in the Nasi township in Mangkhang County in Tibet. This is the only place in Tibet that maintains the most complete and primitive way of drying salt by hand. This salt farm has been around since the early Tang dynasty and it is still done in the exact same way. You know you are in Tibet when you see beautifully adorned motorbikes in the Tibetan livery. We were really hungry and we headed to an authentic Tibetan restaurant.
Jeremy, 147 bowl of noodles. The owner will marry to you and give you the whole shop.
Wow.
The record here is 147 bowls of noodles, but I think most of us could only hit 4 bowls. As we press on deeper and deeper into Tibet, it started to snow as we climbed the mountains. The landscape keeps changing as we drop to lower elevation. You can see greenery coming back. Tibet seems to be in constant construction and therefore the roads are really dusty and dirty. Due to the black ice, one of our members skidded off the road and had to be rescued. Thankfully, he escaped with little more than a bruised ego. Tibetans on a pilgrimage of 3-step 1 bow is very common on these roads. They would walk 3 steps and prostrate onto the ground towards Lhasa from their hometown, a journey that can take up to 2 to 3 years. Due to the heavy snow out here, roads are closed. Finally, the roads reopened after a few hours and we continue our journey. It's -1 degrees on my dashboard. But hey, as a loyal, patriotic Singaporean, I still have my cash card with value inside in case an ERP gantry pops out somewhere in the middle of Tibet. Look at the back of my car. It is absolutely caked in ice and dirt. You cannot even tell the license plate properly. This has got to be the most well-used Singapore Land Cruiser that is not used just for cruising Orchard Road and Raffles Place. This part of Tibet looks like a huge construction site. The journey was slow, we could just creep along between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, and it was really tiring driving into the night. I'm now stuck at 5,000 meters because of the bad road conditions and I'm feeling the effects of high altitude finally, even though I'm on Dimox. Hopefully we can reach our hotel by midnight. It's been almost 13 hours since we left our hotel this morning and we finally made it. But if you look at the condition of the car, it is so filled with dirt, you cannot even barely see the decals. All the decals, the stickers are all covered in mud and you cannot see anything. Day 16 of our road trip expedition is going to take us from Zhuogang to Ranwu Lake. Although it is just 288 kilometers, it's going to take us almost up to midnight before we reach Ranwu Lake. The first part of this broken off-roads is a good indication of what's going to come. Tibetan monks walking along the streets are a common sight, and we share the road with yaks and cows as well. We spotted a beautiful lake in the valley on our drives, and I just couldn't stop myself from stopping by the road and launching my drone for a better view. The crystal clear, cool water has such a calming and relaxing effect on the Singapore soul. In such poor road conditions, we have to hurry if we want to avoid doing night drives, which are definitely more dangerous. I crashed my drone while attempting to take an aerial shot of the 72 bends. Thankfully, I switched out the propellers. It has some damage, but it is still very functional. The 72 bends to the summit of Yela is a high mountain pass at an elevation of more than 4,600 meters above sea level, and it is located in the Tibetan Autonomous Region of China. This is part of the China National Highway 318, also known as the Sichuan-Tibet Highway. It is usually impassable from October to June due to the inclement weather. The summit offers a breathtaking scenery. The road is long, arduous, and crosses several mountain passes through remote areas, so we were definitely prepared. We passed by this lady giving car washes using mountain water to truckers. Since our cars were so dirty, we told her to give it a wash. It was late and we were hungry, so this simple truckers cafe was absolutely tasty to us. We are stuck in a traffic jam up on the mountains, and it's gonna take us at least a couple of hours to get through. You see, it is deadlocked on both directions. These huge trucks need a massive turning radius to turn at the hairpin, but when cars do not give way, you'll get a massive jam that goes on for kilometers after kilometers, winding down all the way, and it's expected to take about 4 hours just to clear this traffic jam here. After hours, finally, the military was sent in to control the traffic, and we finally got moving along. Pilgrims on a 6 months walk by foot to Lhasa is a common sight. You can see how treacherous the cliff walls are. It is so low that even though this is a two-way road, trucks can only pass on the outer lane, which slows down traffic tremendously. The Lijiang Bridge, located at an altitude of 2,730 meters, is one of the key junctions of the Sichuan-Xizang Highway. Before they had this highway, it would take as long as 6 months to cross from Sichuan to Xizang. It was reported that for every 1 kilometer of this highway and bridge, one worker has sacrificed. In fact, it is known that there is one worker who dropped into a concrete pile, and his body is still in that concrete till today. Falling rocks is a real danger. In fact, one of our cars was damaged by the falling rocks that had impeded the road. Rock slide. Leave the car. His car was towed away to be repaired, and we carried on with our journey. This is the final 7 to 8 kilometers to our hotel. It's really dark and there's a massive jam. Some of the cars in front are actually U-turning back instead of heading ahead. So we have no idea if we can get through tonight. But that's how it is on road trips. You can see how narrow the roads are with big trucks just barely having centimeters between them. Here we finally see what is causing the 4 to 5 hours jam that we were stuck at. There is this truck that has broken down and behind it is a long train of trucks that is just simply impassable. It was freezing cold when I woke up on day 17 of my Singapore to Tibet and Everest drive, but the view was all worth it. The Ranwu Lake is huge and sits at 27 square kilometers at an elevation of 3,850 meters. The reason this place is such a famous tourist destination is because its average temperature is a cool 8.5 degrees Celsius with a pretty low rainfall. After the ravishing morning view, it was time to hit the roads once more. Pilgrims who will walk for months to Lhasa is a common sight. We encountered many tunnel construction and we had to squeeze through little minute openings. One of our members' cars unfortunately hit a pothole hard and the tire exploded. I stopped to help them change their tires and they were back on the road again. It was time to stop for a quick lunch before we head to our final destination. It seems the bad roads are never ending in our quest to reach Mount Everest. Along the way, we stopped at one of the Nyingma Tibetan temple, which is more than a couple of centuries old. This temple is nestled in the Galung La Snow Mountain and it is really scenic, peaceful and calm. But getting here is not easy, as you can see the winding roads that we took to get in here. It is time to give my car a Tibetan car wash. As we were tired after a long day's drive, I decided to take a taxi out to our dinner place. For such a small town, the hotel is impressive. Day 18, we are marching on from Pomi towards to Lingzhi as the elevation climb. We stopped by this famous bridge along the 318 route. And we also met this pilgrim who is doing 3-step 1 bow even in rain or shine to Lhasa, and his journey can take up to a couple of years. The scenic route is popular with cyclists and bikers, and you can see why. We had a quick lunch at a hot stone pot restaurant and we got along the way. We finally reached the town of Lingzhi just before nightfall, and this is a really small, quaint, quiet town, but I flew my drone up and managed to catch a glimpse of the school having an event over there. And it's time to give my trusty Land Cruiser a good wash as the road to Tibet is dusty. Day 19, we are continuing our march towards Mount Everest and we start off from Lingzhi towards Lijiang for a total of 480 kilometers today. One of our cars suffered a puncture, but we easily resolved it in a couple of minutes. The road towards Lijiang is extremely scenic and you begin to see the glacial Alps. Driving at high altitude is really bad for fuel consumption and we had to top up our tanks pretty often. We stopped by a town nestled by the mountains for lunch. With the temperature at a freezing -1 degree Celsius, hot pot is the best. This is about as close as I can get with my drone to Potala Palace. The Potala Palace is the winter abode of the Dalai Lamas from the 1600s to the 1900s, but it has been a museum since then and is a World Heritage Site since 1994. It was time for us to march on as we wanted to visit a few other sites before nightfall. The Samye Monastery is the first Tibetan Buddhist monastery built in Tibet during the reign of King Trison Dusen. Construction began in the year 763 and it was only completed in the year 779. This is an extremely popular monastery for devotees and pilgrims to come here and pray. The monks here live a very simple life and you can see where they study the scriptures. We finally arrived in Lijiang before nightfall with an elevation of 3,100 meters as we slowly condition our bodies to the lower oxygen levels and higher altitude. Day 20, we have a long journey from Lijiang to Shigatse. One of our cars suffered a low pressure warning, but it turned out to be a false alarm. We stopped by at this touristy spot where you can take photos with the Tibetan mastiffs. While waiting there, one of our cars couldn't start. His battery was totally damaged and flat, and it took a couple of tries before we could crank it up. He was told not to turn off his engine until we could get him to a workshop and get the battery replaced. Yamdrok Lake is a freshwater lake that is one of the 3 largest in Tibet. It spans over 72 kilometers long and is surrounded by many snow-capped mountains fed by numerous small streams. The lake is ridiculously beautiful with its deep turquoise hue. The Yamdrok Lake is also host to the largest hydropower station in Tibet. It was time for lunch yet in another town nestled among the snow Alps. With such a beautiful surrounding, it is no doubt that these Tibetan people lead very happy and simple lives. Our journey continues through the valleys and the mountain passes. It is surprising that in this part of Tibet, many of the roads are in pretty good condition. Along the way, we stopped by the magnificent Karola Glacier towering over the mountain roads of central Tibet. This is one of the must-see sights as you travel from Lhasa to Shigatse. As we climb higher in altitude, the climate turned a lot more arid. We couldn't resist not stopping at the Baiji monastery built in the early 15th century. This monastery boasts exquisite architecture as well as its well-preserved murals and statues. You can also find a pagoda containing more than 100,000 Buddha statues. We popped in a couple of bottles of octane booster into our gas tank as we are heading to the higher altitude. Our resting place for this evening is the Hilton Shigatse, located at an elevation of 3,800 meters. Occupancy is pretty low at this time of the year. We treated ourselves to a phenomenal dinner buffet after a long drive. The first thing of day 21 of our journey from Shigatse to Tingari is to visit the Tashi Lumpo Monastery. This monastery, founded in the 1400s by the first Dalai Lama, is an important monastery historically and culturally in Tibet. The Sakya monastery is famous because of its grey-white soil. Sakya in the Tibetan language means grey soil. It was built in the year 1073 by the Northern Sung dynasty. The Sakya temple is home to many historical records, Buddhist sculptures, ancient clothing, as well as multiple items of embroidered Buddhist banners. Today is where we will drive up to the Everest base camp, and it is freezing cold at less than -5 degrees centigrade. There is a lot of broken roads and off-road sections on the way to Mount Everest. In order to catch the sunrise, we left at 5:30 a.m. and it was challenging driving on the dark, winding roads. After more than an hour of intense driving, we reached Jiawula Sankou. This is where you can view the four 8,000-meter snow peaks. Our efforts paid off when we were greeted by the golden hues of the rising sun. We are pretty lucky. Due to the weather, only 20% of people who visit this mountain pass get a clear view of this scenery. How could we resist not flying our drones above the 108 bends of Everest? This iconic road is a driving enthusiast's dream. It is easy to get carried away, but we have to be mindful that in these freezing conditions, the roads are pretty slippery. Cars are no longer allowed to drive all the way up to Everest Base Camp, and we have to take the eco buses, which is what we did. The base camp is a pretty sensitive place, and we had to go for our police checks with our passports. And here we are, finally, we have driven from Singapore to Everest Base Camp, which is our objective. Mount Everest stands at 8,848 meters above sea level, which is the highest point on Earth. Now that our objective has been done, it is time to descend to lower elevation. Day 23 is where we will travel from Shigatse to Lhasa. This is a scenic 260 kilometers highway drive. I have been tasked to take photos of each and every car in our convoy with the Potala Palace. Not easy because the police would come running after us if we were to stop. We were able to coordinate the sequence using our walkie-talkies. Here you can see the different make and models of cars that followed me on this trip. You don't necessarily need a serious hardcore off-roader to survive this trip. It was time to treat ourselves to a nice hotel, which for us is the Intercontinental Lhasa Paradise. This hotel is intricately ornamented, and they are also known to serve one of the most decadent buffet dinners.